Are you interested in mixing and mastering a pop song? The answer is yes, and keep watching to find out more. This is part 3 of mixing and mastering a pop song, mixing the drums and the bass. If you've not seen part 1 and 2, go back and watch them. I'll put a link there. We're going to be using some buzz processing and some different techniques on mixing these drums for this pop song. To everyone who's seen my previous videos, thanks for watching. I've enjoyed reading all the comments you've been leaving me. If you want to see something specific, let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to make a video about it. Without further ado, this is part 3 of mixing and mastering a pop song. Alright guys, this is where we're up to. We've got the whole track and it's been the whole track has been gain stage, so it's all at roughly about the right level with all the faders staying at 0. So the next part in this, we're going to be mixing the drums, so I want to mute all the instrumental elements. We're also going to be mixing the bass with the drums because they pretty much sit hand in hand in a mix. So let's find a section that's got a lot of drums in that we want to start with, and that would be the hook. So we're at a level now where it's not very audible. What I like to do now, after gain staging is done, after we're in the rough ballpark area, I like to add a stereo buzz compressor onto my master buzz, and in this case I'll be using the L3 LL. I'm going to set my ceiling at 0.5. With today's streaming services online, the limiter used to be around -3 for like most CD players, but we pretty much set at 0.5 now online, so we'll leave it at that. And if I was making a mix to send it to mastering, I'd have my threshold down at 5. So that's going to be our first compressor for the final sending out to mastering. I'm also going to have another one, and that is going to be the same settings, but this one's going to have a threshold of -10. I'm going to turn off the one that we're going to use for sending it to master. The one set at -10 is going to give us a rough idea of where we're at with what the sound's going to be like when it's mastered. This would be the version that's sent out to clients before mastering to give them a good idea of how it's going to end up. So hopefully when we play this now that our levels are set to an appropriate level, the kick's not going to clip, or if it is, it means it's just a little bit too loud. But hopefully when we start these drums off playing now, and with those settings on that multiband compressor, with the gain staging we've done, we shouldn't be clipping, we should be ending up around 0. But of course I'm going to add the whole mix into this just to check. So we are pretty close to 0 there, that's a pretty good job. So let's close that. Now what I want to do is go through one by one. Right, I'm going to start here. I could either start with the bit of the drums that is the main kind of body of the whole drum rhythm, which would be the bongos, or I could start with my borders, the things that outline the loudest thing and the quietest thing. So I'm kind of going to do that. We're going to start with the kick and bass, and that's going to be the extent of the low end, and then I'm going to move on to the hi-hats and get the extent of the high end right. Then we can move on to how powerful we want the snare to be, and then the other bits just go in between. So let's start off with the kick. I'm feeling at the moment like that bass doesn't have enough power and the kick's a little bit too sharp of a punch. What I'd like to do is flatten that kick out, maintaining the heaviness of it. So I'm reinforcing the bottom end of the kick there, adding some bass into it. I'm going to try this. I like that better. You can hear when it kicks in though with the bass, there's more of a glued together feel. Right, the bass definitely needs some saturation, it needs some grit. We'll go to decapitator and we're going to add in a little bit of beef. And I'm going to leave it at that setting for now. Right, now we're going to be side chaining this kick and this bass. What that means is side chain compression is when you add a compressor to an element. In this case we're going to compress the crap out of this, but only on the moment that kick hits. So that side chain's applied. If we send from the kick to the compressor we've just put in, it should only activate when that kick knocks it down. You can see at the moment it's not compressing any. Let's lower this threshold. You can see that yellow line come down and compress when it hits. That's as much as we need. Now the release time we can play with. That's when the bass comes in after the kick's finished. If I move it back a little bit, there's more space between the kick and the bass. But that also does another job in this case. It makes it sound like there's so much air being given off by that kick that it's going poof, poof, like giving out a proper punch, and that's missing if you leave the release too quick. The next thing I'm going to do to this kick is I'm going to add a bit of lower and then probably reduce the volume. Sorry, that was a stereo one, we want a mono. There we go. So that kick's sounding real full now, but you'll notice it's also peaking. I'm going to take some of that off. So I'm adding it back in again at the same time as I'm lowering the gain. I can feel that rumble now in my ears. I'm going to add these basses back in. just going to close up that gap a little bit. And they're working together nice now. Let's work on this other base. The other base is reminiscent of something that should be huge and springy. I'm going to put this compressor on as well, and we're going to send the side chain to that too. I'm going to take the threshold back because it's not as powerful on this. Yeah, I like that. And we're going to add our base to this because it's not quite got enough punch, enough bottom end to it. Use these big bottoms again. Okay, and I want to add a little bit of grit to that as well. So that's nice now. Now let's bring the other kick in. Now the other kick comes in the other section. So we can use that same compressor we've put on, but we definitely want to send to the same thing. So you can hear that kick is quite lacking. Okay. Next we'll bring in those high elements that I talked about. I'd like a bit of movement on that shaft. Right, it's really going off now. I'm just going to use a little saturation on this to make it stand out without increasing the level. Start bringing in more now. I'd like to get that spit sound out of the bottom of that, so I'll use some more. Right, I'd like quite a lot more attack on this snare. What I'm going to do is use the CLA drums. I'm just going to add some ups and don't want any of that on. And I'm going to put a hard gate on it as well. Okay, let's go with that. Let's find a crash that we can get this level right on. Okay, that crash is quite lacking. I'm going to use the same CLA drums, but there's a nice overheads preset on this. Let's take a listen now. It makes it ring out so much longer. Okay, next, let's go for the bigger crash. Okay, I'm going to apply that same one on there. I just want to carve out a little bit of frequency from this one. If I take that out of there, that should shine through more. That's nice for now. There's also a reverse crash that comes before that. Okay, let's add the toms in. I'd like the toms to melt into the background, so we're going to add some H reverb. I think that's all they're going to need. Now the bongos. I want to have a look at the spectrum for bongos. Let's see exactly what's going on. Not much low end information. I think with this, what I'd like to do is keep it quite wide, but use an exciter to really get that saturation at the tops of those bongos. I'm going to use Apex on this. Just see what we can play about with. You can see that the levels on this are jumping all around all over the place. I think I'd like to compress that a little bit and get it a little bit more equal. Let's take that exciter off a second. I don't want to use any analog if I can help it for now. Right, you can see now that the quieter ones are not activating the compressor that much, but when it gets loud, it kicks in and jams it down. And if we take a look at the compression on this fader, you can see that it's keeping it all at no higher than -12, which is good. We're going to take this off a second, and we're going to lower until it matches. I'd like to add a bit more of saturation still. That's a little bit too much now. Okay, let's try some reverb on that, just see what kind of sound we can get. Okay, now what we're going to do is have everything playing. We're going to check our levels. We're touching 0 with a nice bounce. It's not dipping too far. Okay, let's go to our drum buzz now. And what we want to do in our drum buzz, the drum buzz is taking all of the signals from these separate channels, summing them into one sound, and then the total dB level of that sound contains all the other ones. So at that point, either sounds are being crossed over into frequency ranges where they're distorting and interacting with each other, possibly going out of phase with each other, and possibly activating anything that you've got on that buzz in terms of the dB level reaching a threshold where a compressor kicks in or something. Now, we've not got anything on that buzz at the moment apart from the phase meter, just to see what kind of spread we get in on those drums. I've done all my panning already. I've not panned the bongos yet because I want to place them in the mix where they're wide enough to be the body of it. So we're going to listen to these. So when the bongos kick in, they are quite wide anyway. I'm gonna try, and this might come off later, it's just an idea. If we try Pan Man and have like a random setting so that it feels like the bongos are pretty much all over the place. A little bit less than that maybe. I'm gonna lessen that width a little bit, smooth the panning out, That sounds like I'm in the middle of the beat now. So let's take a note of where we're at with our levels on our drum buzz. At this point we're touching -12 with the kick. I want to get rid of that phase meter, we've used it, we don't need it anymore. So what I'm going to do there is add the infected mushroom pusher. Okay, that's sounding a little bit more like now, but we still want a little bit more out of it. So what I'm going to do is try pushing this now, see what we can get to in terms of compression and limiting and how fat we can make it sound. Okay, we're just going to take a couple dB off. Don't forget, in this drum buzz processing, we're not processing any of the bass items that are in. Only the drums are fed into this buzz. So when we bring this level back down of the drums after we've added our processing, we can match it back to those basses because they never changed. Okay, one last thing. You can see now we've got to the hook, the place where the kick is loudest. After adding the processing, the kick slightly flies out too much. I'm going to reduce this. Okay, and we'll try in the verse again, see if it's still good. Yeah, it has a nice impact. We're just checking that earlier kick out again now. Okay, and that's about it for the kick, for the drums, sorry. So what I'm going to do now is just take another look at this. Go to our main part where the drums are going to be loudest and see what type of attenuation we're getting. Okay, after listening back with that processing on, what it seems to me is that there should be a little bit more high end, a little bit more crunch. So I'm going to play with this a little bit more. And you'll notice the middle of this pusher that says magic. This is basically an exciter. This focus dials it in, and the dynamic punch dials the jumpiness of it, should we say. Yeah, those are sounding nice now. Okay, one last thing you might be noticing. When we added the multiband compressor, if I put this one on, there's still a little kind of like white noise sound. If I put this one on, there's even more, because that's even more compressed. Which means that noise is coming from the signal given off by whatever's being sent to it. In this case, all the processing we've done on the drums has led to a build-up, whether it's been from saturation, whether it's been to compressing. In fact, if we take off the saturation, where is it? No, it doesn't lower. So sometimes it's from the thing, sometimes it's from the compressor itself. The point being, the last thing before sending your mix to a master, which in this case would be post-processing of the mix, would be something that takes out the noise. So you can do this at a level where if you recorded noisy vocals and you want to get rid of some noise, you could use it like that. But on this case, because we've added this master bus compressor, we need to get rid of it. Now I've already dialed my settings in. If we go to an area of the track that's not, I'll take that off. If we go to an area of the track that's not got anything on, it shows you what the signal level coming out is. So we've got that playing now, nothing's changing, that signal is coming from this compressor being on. Okay, so we're going to learn this signal, then stop the track, then stop that. Now we're going to try and get rid of the signal. This is the difference that we hear. So all we have to do is raise the threshold. We're in the signal now. If we take out a little bit more of it, go back to audio, you can still hear it, we want more. You want the reduction as little as possible, because it's going to impact the final track obviously. And let's put it on smooth as well, and let's go back to our difference. That's everything we're taking out of it. So when we start to play that track, that's it playing. This is what we're taking out of it. So let's go back to our mix while something is playing. You can hear nothing but instruments, nothing but the sounds we want. It's much cleaner. If we go to difference, you can see these are the things being taken out of it. And whilst there's a little bit of percussive sound, it's nothing to worry about. If we go back to an area where the track's quieter, it's taking out more of it because the level's low. But it's not taking out too much that it's going to hurt the track. So that's the final step. Of course, that might change when we start to add in the band elements. We might have to readjust, but for now, for what we're listening to and monitoring, that's good.